Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 26 of the Office Hours podcast. Here's a little summary of the different things that we had a chance to talk about today. It was a bit of a heated discussion on what constitutes a software engineer. And, I had my views specifically to the label of engineer and how it's applied indiscriminately to people in this industry. And I was operating under somewhat a misapprehension because apparently, and I did not know that because I'm not a university educated person, that if you study for software engineering in Canada, you are considered an engineer. So throughout most of this debate, I wasn't really coming at it from the correct place. But I still think that most of my opinion is pretty valid anyway. So, if you want to see the ranting and raving, please proceed. And I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 26 of the Office Hours podcast. I am glad to welcome back Mo. Let's see what sort of shenanigans we get up to today. Take it away, Mo.
How you doing, Vasili?
Uh,
How you
I,
doing?
I'm doing better. On call week is over, so finally get a little bit of my sleep back and the
Mhm.
weekends. So having that is nice. Um, I don't know. Most places, people, I guess, don't really enjoy the on-call experience, so it's just a necessary evil of sorts. And I'm glad it's over. So it's all good now. How about yourself?
I'm good. I've had a very busy week so far, and it's not even over yet, but it's going well. Um, I think the only part that I miss is I've not been able to keep up my gym streaks. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. It's going good, but maybe I'm going to have some more time after today because we had a deadline for today and
Mm.
we had like a lot of rush. So I think from tomorrow I should feel a bit more relaxed and everything should go back to the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, besides that, like I'm good. And I feel I feel like this time, I think now I'm kind of used to the way we handle deadlines now. So I know what to expect. I know how things should go. So it's not as stressful as it used to be, but yeah, still stressful.
Yeah,
But it is what it is. It's part of the job.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Fair
It's,
enough. Yeah,
it's
that's
part.
good. That's good. Yeah, I've been missing out on my gym, and I've been missing out on some of my habits, which is not making me very happy. But I got sucked into a new video game. I like played a bunch of it on the weekend, and I was like, damn it, I have to uninstall it because it's just too addictive. It
Which one is that?
never ends. The Enshrouded. It's kind of like this fantasy world base building type thing. I don't know. It's pretty good. It's quite visually pretty good, and has a decent world building, and you can play with your friends too. So, but
Uh,
it just never stops. Yesterday, after finishing rendering the previous episode, I set it up to render, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like half an hour, and I like, oh, maybe I'll play a little bit, and then like 2 hours later, it's like, damn it. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to time box it, but it's really difficult. The addiction of these things is really strong. So
But like gaming is actually good. I've read some article about how gaming helps you to train your brain
mm,
to solve difficult problems in certain ways. But maybe some people might say like there is too much of it. But I think it there should be some advantage to it, like psychologically.
hmm
What do you think?
it's probably true. Uh, the dose is the poison. If you play a little bit and enjoy it, that's fine. But like if you spend way too much time playing, which I sometimes tend to do, it's not
Mhm.
so good. It gets in a way of the things I should be doing, and that part is is annoying, but it's like a vice. I know it's a vice, but it's just so hard to let go of it. I had these periods of time where I would be like, okay, I'm just gonna, uninstall Steam, uninstall all the games, not to have any temptations, and that tends to work for a while, and then you kind of like have the one of those days like, oh man, I wish I just could relax and like
You
play some
deserve
video
it. Yeah.
games, and then
Yeah.
you put it back on. So it's
Mhm.
as with any bad habit, it's just like you constantly circle back to it, and you gotta keep yourself in check. And the thing too is, I guess it's much harder to evaluate the negative potential of games besides just the time that you put into it. And again, it's like you do get some enjoyment out of it. You get some emotion, some positive emotion. Sometimes you don't get that much positive emotion. Sometimes you rage and get a lot of negative emotion, right? So,
Yeah.
but like unlike alcohol or smoking or something else, it probably is seen as milder, like it's not as bad, but then at the same time, the amount of hours that you're never gonna get back for other things. So see, that's the thing. That's a trade-off too. It's like there are other things I should be doing, which probably gonna
Mhm.
put
Mhm.
me further in life compared to playing video games. But sometimes I play video games instead, and I do feel bad about it, but I don't like feel too bad about it. Maybe I should be. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, there is a one time I was listening to this tennis guy, Nick. You know Nick, right? I don't know, I forgot his last name. How do you pronounce that? Kyrgios? Nick? Anyway, he was talking about how like he plays games too, and he does it like big time. Him and Trevor Noah, and they call themselves like sweats. I think
Mm,
is it? I don't know if that's the word sweats.
probably.
Would you ever would you ever consider joining a team like this?
Um. So I know people who play like competitive, well, to an extent, people who like play competitively some of the games that are qualified like esports. And you have to put like to play at that level, you have to put a lot of hours into it, and you basically have to make it your profession almost, right? And I don't have that kind of time, and I just want to play. I mean, I like to get better at the game because, constantly losing sucks and it's very infuriating and just
Yeah.
discouraging. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the interesting part is that when you do notice that you get better at the game, you get more wins, you like play better in different situations. But like playing it on a professional level, that takes just so much effort. And, you know, it's funny that they're called sweats because there's a bunch of really sweaty games out there that you just like it's just so much effort required to play, and tiniest mistakes cost you everything, and it's just like, man, I just want to enjoy myself. I just want to have a little bit of fun for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. So that's why I really enjoy playing the finals right now, because like an average match, if you're not playing ranked, which I don't play ranked right now, but if you're playing unranked, the average match is like 10 minutes. You can kind of go in and out, maybe play one game to warm up and then play a couple of games to have fun, and then you're done, right? And
Yeah.
you kind of have fun. Like I just played before we started recording while I was waiting for you. And sometimes you get
Mhm.
people on voice, and I had a couple of guys on voice that were brand new. They like played like a couple of games. So it was like, yeah, let's show them around while constantly getting murdered, right? But it was
Yeah.
a good experience. That
Mm-hmm.
was like good vibes. Like they're appreciative and not toxic. And sometimes you encounter toxic players. I remember playing the game, and this guy is like, for some reason he thought I was from Quebec, so he started doing all of these insults, and it was just kind of being
In
toxic a
French.
little bit, right? And I was getting a little bit riled up, and I was like, oh my god, this guy, man, like what the hell? And I you know I'm playing medium class, which allows you to like heal and revive people, and the guy gets killed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, just because he's being toxic, it doesn't mean that I have to be toxic and
European.
like not revive him, right? So I revive him, and eventually we do win that round. And in the end, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, like sorry, I got a little bit carried away. So it wasn't like I had this
Mhm.
moment where it was like a decision, like I can be a dick to this guy, or I don't have to. But then in the end, he kind of turned around and it basically flipped the entire situation to something more positive because I could have just started being toxic in return and it would have just escalated. And in the end, we would probably be just very pissed off. But instead, we got the dub and it was like, good game, guys. Like,
Yeah, man,
GG.
good game.
Sorry, I got a little bit carried away. And it's like, yeah, man, it's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, these things
You know,
happen too.
yeah, you mentioned something about like uh, when you play too competitively, like it becomes like a task and probably might take the fun out of it. So it's the same thing. One time, sometimes like maybe I'm working a lot and then I go on Twitter and I see some people writing things like, oh, coding is what they do all day, every day. Like they live, eat, and breathe coding. And I'm wondering, like, if you do this professionally, I don't think you would really feel like that. I don't know if it's possible to always feel like
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
especially as software engineers, like professional software engineers. I feel like it's fun, it's good,
yeah.
but the
Yeah,
moment you have to do it like for every time professionally, it's a job now.
yeah. It's
It's not
very
just
true.
like
I used to be like that, like in my mid to late teens and maybe early 20s too, where I would I would spend a lot of time in front of a computer. I would like try different things, writing code, like just doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, gaming, obviously, a lot of that, but not just that, right? So there was a lot of
Mhm,
exploration, and then when I went to study for computer science, we'd have classes and assignments, so you have to like think about code and write code there. And then after that, after my assignments were done, I would poke around at my like server and try to write some code of my own. And that it continued for quite a while because you get to learn a lot, but it also occupies a lot of your time. So, if you want to also be social, you have to find time for everything, right? So like
yeah.
if you're okay by yourself and not going out, not partying, not like doing anything crazy, you just like
Mhm,
write a bunch of code, you can do it. But then eventually you're right, like when this becomes your profession, and especially again, I think we talked about this a little bit, like when you're at a junior level, the tasks that you build usually are kind of, they're bite-sized. They cut out for you and you just need to implement it. It's
mhm,
a very clear sort of, here's the thing that needs to be done, here's how you do it, go and do it, and then we'll check the results when you're done, right? I mean, I'm not saying it is completely robotic, but it's easier. But as you get on a higher level, you have to put a lot of mental energy into thinking about, systems and interactions and all of these different things. And it's a way more intensive thing. So usually by the end of the day, it's like, you know what? I could probably code for fun, but I've been coding so much the entire day that it's just like, I
yeah.
just want to do something
Mhm,
else. So
mhm,
I think at the early stages of your career, especially if you're young, like if you're a fresh graduate, if you have the time to code, live and breathe code and do it as much as you can, you definitely are going to
mhm.
learn a lot and you're going to progress faster. But I feel eventually it tapers off unless you're a complete workaholic and you just have nothing else in your life but that. And then you can probably be great. But I think I dropped off that particular train some time ago, and uh, I still poke around. Sometimes I get these kind of waves of inspiration when I would like log in onto my server and start like poking around or like doing something that I always wanted to do in terms of like, I don't know, automating something or making something a little bit better or working on some tiny side project. Uh, but I don't make myself do that more than I want to.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's a
not
good
gonna, I'm
thing.
not gonna like if I have something that I need to do on my server, it kind of works, and maybe there's like some manual steps, and it would be nice if it was automated. But if I don't do it, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, I really feel bad for not doing it. It's like it's opportunistic. It kind of keeps me fresh in some ways. And the beauty of these servers is that once properly configured, you usually can just leave them on autopilot for years and years and years, right, without even having to touch it. So
Mhm.
that's kind of nice too.
You know, one thing I was just thinking about right now is that in our field as software engineers, like we get to do certain things like this. Like, we have the opportunity to work outside of work, and do stuff related to work, but not exactly work. But
Hmm.
I don't know if it's like the same in other aspects of engineering. Like, would you can you imagine like maybe other aspects of engineering? First of all, do you consider software engineering as a engineering?
we did talk about it too, right? It's like proper engineering implies liability and certification. So software engineering, from that standpoint, isn't. But from the other, it is, because you have to build very complex systems. You have to have engineering thinking, right? So it, I guess the details are kind of moot in this case. So broadly, I would say yes, but it really depends on the level you're on. Uh, like you know, you start as a software developer and then eventually you grow into being a software engineer, I would put it.
Exactly. That's why I was surprised when he said like being a software engineer is not may not be an engineering. Like, uh, um, do you don't consider them as engineers, or like just
so
because
so I
what
think
what
like
makes
an engineer is like a professional designation, right? You like if
okay?
you're a mechanic, like no, we talked about it, about like credentialing and certification. I can't just call myself an electrical engineer, right? I have to prove it in a
With
sense. So
what? With what do you prove it?
I have to pass some sort of board exam. I have to pass all of the different certifications, like, and even like, okay, there's electrical engineers that are certified for like low voltage, and then there's special certification that allows you to work on like household levels of voltage, and there's also high voltage, which can kill most people if they're not careful, right? So there's like these gradations inside of it that you have to prove that you are capable and know everything you need to know. You can't just call yourself, like, if somebody hires me and I tell them, oh yeah, I'm an electrical engineer, like they will be like, okay, well, where's your certificate, like where's your whatever it's called, the red seal. I don't know if it's electrical, but probably something like that, right? There's a body that credentials you and says, okay, you are now officially designated an engineer, and there's responsibilities that come with that. So same way I can't call myself a doctor all willy-nilly without having to go to medical school, right? So from that perspective, software engineering isn't technically, strictly speaking, engineering, because if you know how to write code, you know how to write code, right? But there isn't a designation that makes it official. And we talked about it in a previous episode, right? So
No, I don't think this is what we talked about. No, no. What we talked about, it was a bit different from this. So, for example, being a software engineer is not, like you said, it's not about. I mean, in our previous conversations, in something related that we talked about, was it's not about writing code. Writing code, anybody can. A 16-year-old can write code. In fact, a 15-year-old can write code, and that doesn't make them a software engineer. You
right.
could you could write codes, but that doesn't define you as a software engineer. But right now, you mentioned that being a being a software, you started as a software developer, and then you can go ahead to become a software engineer at some point, depending on the direction of your career exactly. But does this time that you put into like learning different levels of the systems and like growing in experience, does that not count as your how do you say that, your
Expertise,
proof?
proof.
Yeah, your proof of being an engineer,
Well,
if you
so
spent.
yeah, no, I mean, I was taking exception to the word engineer specifically because legally it has specific connotations outside of, like, any kind of engineer outside software. It has legal connotations to it, and the software engineering it doesn't. So whenever software developers call themselves software engineers, professional engineers kind of scoff at that. That was the only thing that I was trying to say with that. I can't say that I agree or disagree with that. And I think I mentioned that like having a professional designation for this would be a suicide for most part. And it's again calling yourself something that you have to, for certain terms, you have to be able to prove it officially, right? For certain professions, and software is not one of them. Anyway, I think we're kind of getting into the verbal word definition business, which isn't particularly interesting. So, yeah.
You know, actually, like I would like to talk about this today.
Mm,
For example, there is a definition for engineering. You know, first, everyone knows what it means to engineer,
mm.
to like the meaning of engineering. It means you have a standard process to follow to achieve a certain task. That is you engineering. And I'm not sure if software development is lacking this process. If at all, we have a lot of this process in the process of building software. So what makes it less of an engineering process?
So, I don't know. Uh, Again, being nitpicky, it's just there is a
And I'm
professional.
putting you on the spot here.
No, it's just there's a professional designation to call yourself a certain title, which
Mm-hmm.
software doesn't have. So all talk about all visual aspects or all forms associated with that still is not going to make you a designated engineer. It's like, yeah, we follow the practices, we have the patterns, we have the best practices, we have verification and validation, and also you can have none of those things and write code. So just the attributes of, like, just because we do all of the things that electrical engineers do in their process doesn't qualify us to be designated engineers from a legal standpoint. That's the only point I'm trying to make here. So um like,
I get it.
yeah.
I get you. You know what? I get you, but I get the points you're trying to make. And but I want I'm looking for like the reason why. Like aside from the fact that I think right now you're doing like a direct comparison.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a direct comparison of two fields:
Right.
electrical engineers and software engineers.
Well,
But
mechanical
these are not,
engineers, civil
yeah,
engineers, same thing, right?
exactly. So all of them, they are all like engineering fields, but you being able to write code and develop build a system means that you have gone through this process. Probably you did all this process by yourself. It doesn't mean that you did not go through any process. Probably you did it alone. Does
Hmm.
not mean that it is not still a process. For
Right.
example, you cannot just write code and just publish it. Would you want to put your information and would you want to trust your data in an untested, unverified software? Nobody would want to do that. You want to make sure like it's safe, secured, and like it's guaranteed to do what it's supposed to do
Or you do
to be
none of
able to
those
use.
things and nobody from outside can tell. See, that's the difference. I can do all of the things right and put the code out there, or I can do none of those things and put the code out there, and to the casual observer, unless they get tripped up and burned by something, they will not see a modicum of difference. And I think the reason that it is like that, it's because engineering in general has long roots, with secret knowledge back in, like, I don't know, 1500s, and guilds, and like this atmosphere of having like a specific class of people that can and everybody else cannot, and you have to prove your worth. It was like this whole historical process that went for hundreds of years, and then software comes about literally overnight. So it hasn't had a chance to form and mature in a way where that entire industry can be locked down under some sort of governing body. Everybody could just do software more or less, and they did. Anybody, like, if you watch some of those documentaries about like early computing, where people were literally building computers out of parts in their garage, like no one was there to tell you, hey, you buddy, you're not a guild member of a certain rank to be able to do that. No, everyone just went out and did it. It was very democratic. And the amount of people doing it exploded so quickly that everyone was just like, well, I guess that's a thing now that people just do it. And there wasn't hundreds of years to form, a guild of software engineers that is very picky about who it allows in and trades and like trains them in their secrets and the knowledge of how, processor architecture works or whatever. It's like, no, everyone can just go out and do it. So if some new field like AI, it's sprung out in much the same fashion and everybody does a bunch of stuff with it, and now they're looking at it, it's like, ooh, it kind of getting sketchy. Maybe we should have some sort of oversight in the legal sense put on it, but the cat's out of the bag, and the barn doors are open and the horse has bolted, so you can't put it back together again. So that's kind of where we are right now. People call themselves software engineers. Fine, fair enough. That's what I'm saying. Like, people who had to specifically designate themselves probably wince and cringe at that, but it's just how things are. So if you call yourself a software engineer, I'm not going to think anything about it. Uh, Maybe if I see someone's code and be like, you call yourself a software engineer? Okay. But, I usually call myself a software developer because it's, again, I don't trust myself to write code in such critical situation that if something really terrible can happen out of it, like I write code, it's decent, but it's not really great to an extent where I'd be like, okay, I'm willing to put my name on it and send people in a rocket to the moon with the software that I wrote. I'm not at that level, and that's why I don't call myself a software engineer. I'm just a software developer.
Okay, so okay, so do you think like so first of all, we have to put it out there like when it comes to software development, there are different various fields of software development. So right now you mentioned the guy that builds rockets. Would you, if you work in this industry, would you also say that's not engineering?
So
So
yeah, no, I
the guy,
see. Yeah,
the guy in charge of the codes in Tesla, is that not engineering? Is that still just the developer? Because if you say you can just build anything, you can build a website. Anybody and their uncle can build a website. Like like that's probably like pretty. But if you're looking at it from this view, I guess it is easy to say, oh yeah, anybody can do it. Like it's not that serious.
right.
But there are certain systems and there are certain industries
Sure.
that that makes it more that has more um,
Yeah.
uh, importance and like
I
more
yeah.
more.
I think I have an answer to that because okay, so let's take the car example. Um,
Mhm.
I think so. The difference is like even besides the software, if you get a car that is designed by an engineer, for most part, in proper usage of the car, your safety is guaranteed by the manufacturer and by the fact that they are professional engineers. Okay, like a guy working at Tesla, if he's writing code for an autopilot, I am pretty sure that because of all of the different restrictions and oversight and all of these things and safety requirements, it would be more closer to like the true engineering in that specific legal designation sense, right? Because they do have all eyes on them. But at the same time, there is Comma AI, which builds a hardware that you plug in into your car's port that gives you self-driving capacity. The only difference is that they say if you do it, it's completely at your own risk because it's an amateur product. But you know, if a non-engineer tried to mass produce something without a proper designation, there's going to be some cease and desist lawsuits saying, hey, you can't put that on a market. But with software, seemingly there isn't. So if I buy that product and plug it into my car and something glitches out and I hit a wall somewhere, I'm the one responsible for it because, I accepted the terms and conditions saying it's completely on you, right? I mean, okay, granted, uh, even with modern cars, anytime you turn it on, the infotainment tells you, like, hey, driving is a risky business, so blah, 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 you agree, right? So every time you turn it on, you have to press that stupid button. So even they are trying to cover their ass. But ultimately, if I pretend to be an engineer and I do electrical wiring on someone's house, the city inspection will come in, look at it, see that I have no certifications, and order to rip everything I did out. And that's that. But if I'm a software engineer and I write some code, nobody's going to show up to inspect it and say this is not up to standard, so you got to get rid of it and do it again. And that's the crux of the difference here, I think. So yeah, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It's just that somehow I'm struggling to to really see it the same way, because I feel these days, in like, there's a thing about like capitalism. There's a lot of like capitalism business going on in this industry, and it kind of takes away the risk, like the value of what we do really, because I don't think I would put that much trust, even like the ones that are actually built with a lot of verification and a lot of processes, we're still skeptical about them. Maybe if you're building like a calculator, probably, maybe you can do whatever you want. Maybe if you're building a website for a restaurant, probably you can do whatever you want and nobody will check it. But if I'm to pay someone to do something for me of value, I would want someone with good experience and know what they're doing. And maybe, and also you mentioned like in the Tesla guy, they say things like, "Oh, it's at your own risk." But this is the same in every other field. For example, a doctor will not, if it's who that performs surgery on you, would give you the form to fill. Like nobody's guarantee
Yeah, but
100% success.
the doctor
You're not.
pays hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for malpractice insurance in case he gets sued. Like, and
There is a
engineers, they probably have some sort of malpractice insurance as well. Software engineers, show me one software engineer that pays into an insurance that if something goes wrong with some website, he's gonna get sued. Doesn't exist, right? They're
That's the
different
thing.
things.
We are looking at it from the point of websites, and software development is not websites.
I'm just
I
saying
think
website, but I mean in general.
this is
And
not website. So if you're talking about website, anybody can go ahead and build a web. In fact, WordPress, anybody can use WordPress. My grandma can build a WordPress website.
yeah,
Maybe I'm being disrespectful right now, but
yeah.
yeah.
And
But
my grandma can
anybody,
probably hack a WordPress website, given,
like,
that easy.
but the point I'm making is that there are certain levels to these things, and the fact that it is easy to do certain things now, and the fact that it is easy to do it now is also because of some people who built these systems that makes it easy. For example, like WordPress. It's some people who came about with this platform. Someone brought this platform to make it easy to build this website. So now it's easy to say, oh, because I can build a website, now I'm a software engineer. No. But, and even like other platforms say, like, whatever framework you use now is somebody's work. JavaScript is someone's work itself, and these are people who have spent their life building this industry. Like they have given a lot of things to this industry, not for someone to just overlook all this hard work and just say like, oh, this is just we just do it. I
No,
think I think
I think you're mischaracterizing my position because I never mentioned that I overlook their work. I'm saying that specifically for a legally termed definition of an engineer, it's different. That's all I'm saying. The fact that they spend their life's
you know what
time and achievement to write all of this code is great. That's not my point.
you know what speaking of an electrical engineer, there are different levels of electrical engineers too. For
Yeah,
example, um, the guy that would fix my bulb in my building probably didn't even go to school, but is able to put all the wires together. Probably just learned as an apprentice somewhere and learned from someone to do these things, and really has no real certificate or like real school knowledge. I mean, this happens, you know. Like I don't know if this is like I don't work in this industry, but I know this from my country,
right.
you know. So
Well,
this is true,
yeah.
and we do
Yeah, but like
and we'll do
different countries have different requirements, right? In
probably.
like America, you can certainly do it, but if, in case anything happens and you have to deal with insurance companies and they discover that somebody who put in the electricals is not a quote unquote professional, kiss your
Mhm.
payout goodbye. That's the whole point, right? Is that I'm not denying the fact that people can do things without having somebody else give their thumb up and saying yes, I approve, right? It's not the point. It's just there's legal and financial consequences to be calling yourself things in like Canada, US, the Western world broadly. Whereas if you're in I don't know, third world country, people usually don't care. Like they want lights, they get the wires plugged in, they get their lights, they're happy because it's different, just different landscape in terms of insurance and compliance and legal things, right? I mean, it ultimately it's a construct, and again, people can do things broadly speaking without anyone's approval. The whole thing about engineering designation is those legal and financial consequences. That's the only thing that I'm saying. I don't diminish anyone's
Okay,
achievements
good,
in the field or anything like that.
good. So, for example, if you build a website now and you make it accessible for everyone to use, and I use the website, and it let's say I have a negative effect. The website has a negative. Do you know, like, it's possible to sue you to for having this website?
The website made you feel bad? I mean,
Anything.
I'd like to see
It's
you try.
no, this is true. There are people who actually have these lawsuits, you know,
Well, there's people
like
who chase ambulances too, trying to get a lawsuit out of somebody. And there's like
yeah.
a
So
certain class of lawyer that stoops down to these types of tactics, but I still don't think that it's like a
the,
common practice that everyone says like, yeah, that's how it should be.
you're responsible for it. Like you're everyone is responsible for what they do. So if you are not supposed to do it and you do it and it goes bad, you are still responsible for it. Just like the electrical engineer you mentioned will be responsible for it.
Yeah, I
So
think
everyone
it's
is
just that
responsible for it.
there's more avenues for recourse when you're dealing with somebody with a professional designation. Because if I just put some site online, good luck. Good luck with that. If something happened on that website that you disliked and you want to sue me, like, okay, sure. Well, sue me in England. Like,
Yeah. So I think I think there is and you know what? Like I want us to talk about this because I find like this is probably the reason why like software development has like a lot of loopholes, a lot of it lacks uniformity in a lot of ways, you know,
yeah.
because a lot of people treat it like music, like you can do whatever you want and just, you know, nobody's going
I
to
mean,
stop you. But this is not how it started. This is not how the industry actually came about. This is not how we started really. You have to go through some formal education to actually get to the point where you're able to do certain things and
right, but I think that was financially, it was more of a for financial reasons because computers were so expensive, only university, the government and the military could afford them in the first place. So if you wanted to learn it, you had to go to school because they were the only ones that had it. Once computers hit personal computing space, that
mm,
was it. Everything was out. I remember watching this mini documentary about how the Berkeley time sharing system was developed. The thing that allows like multiple users to use the same server, like the origins of like Unix operating system. And it was like, yeah, you had to go to IBM and prostrate yourself before them and ask them for like if they deign to sell you a computer systems for your university, and the costs were pretty outrageous too. So again, you had to. But yeah, once it was out there, once you could get a computer for $100, why would you have to go to university to do that? I mean, sure, it helps because again, the knowledge was concentrated there as an after effect, but that hasn't been true for like at least good 10 years. And I mean, it's funny because 10 years, like it's a very, very young discipline in general, right? It's only been around for what, like 60 years at most in its like formal state. So
But but
yeah.
I so now like brings me to this question. Like, do you see this as a problem, or do you see this as like, yeah, it's okay. We can do whatever we want.
It depends. It depends on the end use, right? I mean, what does it mean to see it as a problem? As in, like, something must be done about it because some random person doesn't like some website online, or I don't know, somebody went
No,
to a
I'm
website
talking about
and
no. So
something
when
happened?
no, so I'm talking about the uniformity in quality. Say, for example, in for example, in civil engineering, let's say you are to build a bridge, like there will probably be some level of uniformity in quality in the
Probably.
bridge, probably, arguably even, because but there will be some level of uniformity. But when it comes to like software development, in a very large sense, there is almost lack of uniformity in quality.
Yeah.
And when you're in school, they teach you about like some engineering, like quality control, quality assurance, all these kind of groups that's supposed to ensure. But I've never, I mean, I've been in the industry for a while now. I've not really heard much about them or like know where they are. But I feel that we should have some level of um, uniformity in quality. So, for example, a website should have this level of quality before it gets published.
Right, but it's there if you want it. I mean, there's well, first of all, what does it mean uniformity in quality? I mean, okay, so my thoughts on it is this. If you're studying to build bridges, we have, decades, if not hundreds of years of material science that says, you shouldn't build bridges out of those materials because it's not a good idea. So the amount of possibilities to pick from, the designs, the type of like load bearing structures, and you actually have these calculations that you can perform to sort of map loads to physical space and how things will compress and tear and shear and all of these things, right? We have discovered all of these things. So the domain that you're working in is fairly narrow. Like you have patterns, like unless we come up with some new materials that are drastically different, the methods by which we build bridges is going to stay mostly same, right? uh and there's probably, I don't know, if we look at like the bridges that are like very serious, there's probably, I don't know, like tens of thousands of bridges, or maybe let's say, I don't even know, like hundreds of thousands of bridges on a planet. But there's like billion applications. If we had billion bridges, the uniformity consistency between them would be not very, probably, again, it would vary way more. Just because they're a smaller domain, it's easier to maintain it more uniform. But if you had to build a billion bridges, then your quality could be all over the place, same as it with software. And I honestly don't think that it's that uniform in any profession. It's just some may be more, some may be less, but it's not like super strict. And the same thing, when it comes to materials, like, okay, you build bridges out of steel because that's the best thing to build bridges out of. But when you're building a website, there's like 5,000 different things you can use for that purpose. And the only way you can have that kind of uniformity is to just have like one blessed language and one blessed framework, or I don't know, or five or 10 that everybody has to stick to. But what would that achieve? And for what purposes? Like, if I'm building a bridge at home out of popsicle sticks just as a fun little project, who's to say I don't get to do that, right? Um, so what would be the end goal of imposing that uniformity on the entire industry? Like, who's going to be benefiting from that as a whole? Is there even a point in doing that? Because, I mean, arguably, incidents happen, but everybody seems to be pretty stoked about the variety and diversity of things they can access through digital means. And nobody's kind of going saying like, rah, 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 this is horrible. We should just get rid of it all. So, I mean, I see your point. It's probably nicer to have things of higher quality, but at what cost and for what purpose?
So why do we have quality? Um, why do we have like quality team? Like, say for example, you have a QA team in every software development team, you have the QA guys. So if quality is not even a thing that you want to achieve, then why have them?
But I'm not saying that. Any software project can attain any degree of quality that they deem necessary for themselves on a case by case basis. Like, I know what's good for my software project, or maybe if I'm ignorant about certain things, I might not have the full extent of that picture, but I have some quality target in mind. If I'm writing a one-off shell script to parse some logs from my server, I don't give a rat's ass about quality. I just needed to get the data in and data out, right? I'm not going to spend 3 days running an elaborate QA procedure for that. But if I'm building a bank and I'm financially liable with other people's money, lawsuit, jail time, hell yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit more quality. So I'm saying that if everybody can choose the degree to which they want to maintain quality for themselves, there's going to be the sweet spot, right? Like, there's going to be some distribution where there's a product with shitty quality that nobody's using because it's shitty quality. There's a product with medium quality that most people are using it because they are not that bothered by the edge cases. And then there's like super ultra quality product that has like virtually zero bugs, and not as many people use it because it was so expensive to produce they probably can't even afford it. There has to be some happy medium where it's like sturdy enough that it works and does like everything, and maybe occasionally some stuff happens that is kind of, could have been caught. But if you make everybody go to that like furthest degree of quality possible, what's that gonna do? If you
Okay,
can't decide, right? If
okay.
it's
So right now,
mandated from outside.
right now, what would you say is the responsibility of your QA team in the software? What is their responsibility?
Well, broadly, so that the thing doesn't explode in someone's face, so that they actually can utilize the advertised functionality without issues. And hopefully that when they do so, it doesn't set their house on fire, broadly speaking.
So, you know, the issue with this is that this is like anybody can do this.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you probably don't even need a team for this. And this is the problem that I'm talking about. Because ideally, there should be some. So, for example, um, a toothpaste. I mean, how do you say that? I'm
Hmm.
looking for a product. Should be, how do you say that? Water should be water everywhere, you know?
But it's not.
And it should be water everywhere. Water, H2O should always give you water
Yeah, like
everywhere.
pure water is water everywhere, but tap water is drastically different even within the same city, right?
It's water. It's H2O
Right,
at
but
the end of the day. This is the minimum. H2O is the composition of water everywhere. But in our industry, we don't really have this. Nobody follows like what right now. As long as you just check like, oh, um, maybe you check the requirement, you check like the feature against the requirement, and that's probably it. Nobody's checking like other other levels. They are different. So for example, like when you're building your application, you're not checking like for people with um color blindness or like
Right.
eye problems. There are different people with different types of needs and like different. So there should be, as we grow, as the industry grows, I think that there should be some level of
So
at least
there
quality
is, but there is,
expected.
there is. That's the
But
part.
nobody's using it. That's my point. There,
The people who have to use it do. Like for instance, I work for Loblaw. We have
mhm.
online properties, and we are legally obligated to follow some level of the web
Legally,
accessibility
you say.
initiative. Yes, that's the only way
Legally,
that, like, again, the only way that people are going to do something if they want to or if they made to. And we as an
but
industry are made to, hold on, and we have to go through these certifications to say that our online properties are accessible for people, with disabilities or anything else, right? And if we don't do it, we get, I don't know exactly what happens then, but probably we get angry letters from a regulator at first and then some
yeah,
lawsuits or
yeah.
whatever else.
Do you see? Do you see, Vasili? This is what you just like explain what I was saying in the beginning. Right now, you mentioned legal, you
Yeah,
mentioned certifications, and you mentioned lawsuit for
yeah,
a website.
yeah.
Apparently, so for a web, so
But
does
it's
that
it's
not
not
make
it's
it
not going to
an
be
engineering process?
it's not going to be an individual person suing, and again, it has nothing to do with the engineering process.
It's
I'm
because
saying
it's low blow.
it's because it's a big enough property on like a federal level, that enough people use it that they actually make, like, if my blog is probably, well, I mean, it's trivial enough that it is probably accessible, but if I were to put some website that is not accessible and 3 people visit it, okay. If somebody who is, I don't know, has problems with
No,
distinguishing color goes to my website and can read
no,
something,
no,
okay, well, I mean,
no.
it would be nice. I would like to accommodate them, but I have to spend time, money, and effort to do so for what payout exactly? What is my incentive to do it? If I build a website that targets specifically disabled people and I did not put accessibility on it, that would be pretty silly. But a website that like 3 people visit a month, I can afford to not care about it because whatever, like there's billion other websites, they can go there and enjoy those other websites and not enjoy mine. So what's
Okay.
the problem here again?
So now let's draw the line, right? So you can have your own website. This is you, your own website. Let's draw the line here. But aside from, I mean, there are certain companies like that care about the application. I know about this, but there are also other companies who don't have this regulation, who don't care about all this, like the basic quality that we just mentioned. The basic quality is what I'm asking, is what I'm suggesting here. Like there should be a basic line, like,
Yeah,
okay, this is it.
but
This is
hold on.
basic.
The market will decide. If your website is that crappy that it's unusable, people are not going to use it. So again, what is the problem? Like, okay, let's say Loblaw was not financially
Mhm.
or legally obligated to provide accessibility on their websites, which excludes a bunch of people from using their website and therefore bringing them additional revenue. So it's a good trade off. It's like if we can add tens of thousands of people who will go to our website and buy products from us and pay us money, the amount we
Mhm.
pay to develop it is immeasurable compared to amount of revenue we're going to get over it from a long run. So it's a no-brainer. It's like we have this entire market that we can just plug it into our website if we just make it work for them better. Why wouldn't we do that? Right. So
This
again,
is it.
there's legal pressure and there's market pressure. I mean, I'm a capitalist libertarian for most part, and I think that market pressure is a very serious thing. And if you think that I can put out crappy products
Mhm.
and people are still forced to buy it, which is what happens with like state monopolies. Like for instance, car insurance in the province of BC. There's like one company that sells car insurance, and it's a crown corporation, and their service is abysmal and they're terrible, and there's nothing you can do about it. They don't have to maintain quality because of where else are you gonna go? It's not market. On a market, if I'm a disabled person, I can't see colors. I go to Loblaw and I can read the prices, and then I go to superstore, not the superstore, sorry, Save on Foods, and I read the prices there. I'm gonna shop
Mhm.
there, and my problem is solved, and they're losing a customer, and the market has spoken. So again, what is the problem here?
Okay, I get your point, but you see, I get your point, but at the same time, I feel like we are staying around website. Software is not just websites. There's a lot of
These days,
use to it.
majority of software kind of is. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying the word website as an example because when was the last time you really downloaded an actual piece of software on your computer that wasn't accessed through the browser? It the percentage of that seems shrinking more and more and more. It's like everything is just a website these days. Even most web apps or even most apps are now technically built using web technologies.
I
So
mean, I see your point. Like, I think I understand where you're coming from. And yeah, maybe the quality depends on the market. Maybe, but I just feel that we should, as an industry, we should get to a point where like at least there's some form of regulation for everything that is being not at least like if it because like you said, you cannot just go and wire a building now without regulation. You have to follow the regulation.
do you think a government regulation can actually make an industry better?
I
Like
don't know. What do you think?
are they even capable of making it better, or it just
I
becomes
think
some
so.
sort of weird regulatory capture, and there's this weird uh what's the proper word, like these meta relationships that should not normally occur, and all of the shady dealings and everything that comes into it. It's like, yeah, we're supposed to be regulating you, but wink wink nudge nudge, we can avert our gaze and look someplace else for a while you're doing this thing over here. And I don't know.
This is another problem you're mentioning. This problem, this can you're opening is a different can entirely.
But it does exist as a part of the set of all the things that come with it. So why would we willingly impose that on ourselves? That's what I'm saying, is like, so
Mm,
far market seemingly, for most part, except for some weird edge cases, decides. And okay, fair enough, there's a lot of collusion and things like that for very big players, and a lot of them play dirty, and no amount of regulation is ever going to stop that. And they're not going to have enough kindness of their heart as a some sort of global corporation where all of the decision making is like spread across the entire organization, like you can't really pinpoint it down to anyone. So all of those things happen too. I'm not saying it's an ideal system, but for most part, shitty products do not survive. Products with poor quality do not survive, and products with great quality that deliver value do survive. So naturally, unless it tends into like some sort of monopoly, that's where, or oligopoly, that's where things kind of start falling apart. But if you have multiple players providing the same products or same type of service, people will always vote with their wallet and go where they're treated better or where they get better things. So to say all of that is nice, but we also need some government agency to regulate it on top of that, or some you know legal entity to regulate that. That, I don't know. That seems very odd to me. I don't think that it's gonna work. I don't think that it can work, and it just only gonna make everything worse and more expensive. So, like again, what is the point? What's the problem that it's solving?
no, see, for example, I get your point, and I think I share your opinion now. But I'm just gonna suggest something, yeah?
Hmm.
So for example, have you ever been hacked? Like, have you ever had a situation where someone took something from you or like stole your identity or tried to steal something from you that you lost from the internet?
Mm, no, but I pay a lot of attention to online security and like online hygiene when it comes to that. I see where you're going with this, but again, these problems are not unique just to software. It's like saying, have you ever been mugged? It's like that can happen too, right? And we do have all of the regulation on top of that to prevent it from happening, yet it happens anyway. And it's not like every website you go to, you like, okay, there's a lot of scandals where a lot of information gets leaked. And I think the problem with this is that a lot of very popular sites end up these concentrated silos. So they're like very, very high value. Like 100 small businesses aren't likely going to have enough value to target all of them simultaneously versus one huge business with a lot of value associated to it that if you manage to do it, you get a lot, right? And because of its global accessibility, a lot of people ended up using same platforms and same systems. So when they get hacked, the impact is multiplied. So fair enough, yes. And I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. Is like, I agree that there should be some, but to have a blanket statement like the entire industry should have baseline level of quality, like maybe entire banking industry, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Do they?
Financial industry. Well, I
Do
mean,
they?
well, they kind of have to because like,
Today, do you know about any?
well,
Because I don't know.
I don't work for a bank, but anything to do with finances is heavily regulated by the government. Like
Software.
the only closest example I have
Mhm.
is, we had a project a bunch of years back where we were attempting to build a platform to do raffles online. And like having a software as a service product that allows people and companies to organize raffles and like run them on our platform and like pick winners and things like that. And that is qualified as gambling. And there's a whole organization that a lot of people probably don't know anything about called the Gaming Policy Enforcement Branch, which is a Canadian, I think, federal agency that oversees all gambling in all casinos. And in order for us to even begin doing anything, we had to, first of all of the co-founders had to go through a very rigorous background check and personal interviews. All of the code had to be certified by an independent third-party vendor that is, again, qualified. So a lot of industries already have that. And just because you're not working in them, you don't see that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. A lot of big players have a lot of regulations that they have to follow and certifications and all of that, and it's already in place. And I guess maybe because of that, we can't say that because of that nothing happened or something happened. Again, I don't know of any information that would say definitively it's like, yes, because they were certified by so and so, something didn't happen, right? How can you even conceive of that? But it does
You see,
exist.
yeah, you see, if you tell me that it exists, that this will make me happy because now I can think of at least trust that some of these systems have some form of security to some extent. I'll give you an example. Desjardins is a bank in Canada, and a few years ago, they had a security breach where they spent so much money in lawsuits to actually settle the people that were involved. Earlier, you mentioned banks having some form of regulations. This is to say, like, even with this regulation, if they do, it's still shady. It's still that still shows that there is a way that it's still penetrable. Penetrable.
Penetrable.
Anyway, penetrable, and and that's that's still to let people to see like, okay, there is still work to do in this for this.
Yeah.
And I asked you earlier about how if you've been hacked, this you can say that you are careful. You can say that you look into this, but this is because of your own experience in this field. There are not you cannot average as you cannot compare what you know in this industry and what you know in the field with like everyone else.
No, for
So
sure. But
so if you're looking out for yourself, I feel like you have some certain advantage. Like you know certain things. Like you know not to put your password, your credit card in an HTTP website. You know not to put your password in this kind of things. You know not to do certain things. But there are certain people who don't know these things, and these are the users of these applications. These are they make the largest numbers of these applications. I mean, not only software developers. So that's why I'm asking, like, I think at some point, but if you say we already do in certain industries, this is good. This is good to know. For example, like if you mention like in poker and like gambling industry, like this is good because this is actually a very volatile industry. So, but
actually, it's very not volatile industry because of how heavily regulated they are. Like if you go to a casino in BC or anywhere in Canada, I would imagine,
mm,
like all of the percentages and chances and all of that, they're highly proscribed. And so like there isn't even like, I mean, it's gambling in a sense, but in such a narrow terms. I don't even understand why
mm,
people would go to a casino to try to win money, because like when you're playing
why
on a
not?
mechanical machine, like all of the
Why
machines are
not?
networked and they like adjust all of their probabilities remotely, and like it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's been reduced to a formula, and it feels like the divine intervention is not possible in this circumstance. It's so heavily, regulated from every side. So if you go there for an experience, sure, be my guest. But if you're going there thinking that you're gonna have some lucky break and you're gonna win $1 million in slots, statistically speaking, yeah, I don't know.
Nah. Well, I'm not.
I
I'm
mean,
not. I'm
people
not.
people do win. It's just probability of it being you. And the other thing you said about Desjardins being hacked or whatever, you,
hmm
you know,
I don't know if they were hacked, but I know there was a leak at some point.
well, leak, hack, whatever. In a sense that someone's data was
Mhm,
compromised. But
mhm,
I had this thought that before they put a no smoking plaque on a gas station, somebody actually
mhm.
had to smoke and blow up for them to say, "Oh, you know what? That's probably not a good idea." So all of the security environment requirements evolve as they're being tested by real world. You can't just issue a blanket statement saying all software must be secure for from
No,
everything every time period. It's
no,
new
this is not
things
what I'm
come to
saying.
light, but like that's how a government bureaucracy would work, right? They can only
No,
react, and everybody in
no.
these situations can only react, for broadly speaking.
So when I said we should have some form of uniformity is what I was suggesting. And you made a strong point that I understand and I accept is that for us to have this type of uniformity, maybe we also have to have the same set of tools. Like when you use the example with the
Yeah,
bridge and like
yeah,
you have to use sand and whatever, it's
yeah,
fixed the materials.
yeah,
But in our own case, we have different brand of materials, if I may describe it
yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah. No,
because
that's what I'm saying. Like we have all of these
so
frameworks at our disposal.
so maybe um we might not, in terms of like the development itself, we might not be able to use the same formula to ensure uniformity. But the uniformity I'm suggesting is at least in terms of experience, in terms of like knowing that okay, I can, for example, um, I think there's a country I know of, and maybe if you drink water and something happens to you, you can actually sue.
Hmm.
Sue. I think maybe I don't know if it's the same. Maybe it's in the UK. I don't know somewhere. I don't know. But this is how you can close your eyes to actually do certain things, knowing that okay, it's actually. But we are far from it. We are really far from it right now in every aspect. And
We've worked with a UK company that's a water provider,
Mhm.
and they're regulated out the wazoo. Like you have no idea how much regulation is upon them. Like just
Yeah,
nuts. So when you say we should be regulated, a lot of these places are. And when you say there should be uniformity, a lot of these places that actually matter, there is. And even that
like
doesn't
where,
help. Like
like,
automotive. If you write code for
mhm,
automotive applications, like the stuff that runs on the
mhm.
embedded controllers and
Yeah,
ECUs,
if there is,
it
then
it
good.
all has to be done. Well, I don't know all, but from what I understand, there's a specific version of C language which is drastically reduced in its functionality and the types of things you're allowed to do. Like for it's called Misra C. It's like this subset of C that prevents you from, like, let's say doing like pointer math or whatever common foot guns that C has, in order
Mhm.
to reduce the likelihood of critical bugs. So it's already there. We're just not seeing, like, nobody's gonna tell you when you buy a car, it's like, oh, did you know that the software was developed using Mr. C standard and therefore it's very safe?
Okay,
Like,
okay.
most people don't care, right?
This is my point, Vasili. Like this is my point. Like if you have all these regulations and all these law legal stuffs going on, why are we not considering software engineering as an engineering field? Like
Again,
all this regulation,
I'm not
all this
talking about the
regulation.
field. I'm not talking about the
Why
field.
are we not regarding it as as an engineering? What makes it different from other engineering fields with
I'm not
all
sa-
these things we've just discussed?
I'm not saying that the field is not recognized as an engineering field. I said that any given individual calling themselves an engineer isn't that in a strictly legal designated sense. Again, I think I said that 3 times already. That was not my point. It is an engineering field, but if you call yourself
Okay, this
software
is it.
engineer, it has
This
a
is it.
certain connotation to it that you can't just throw around. I can't call myself a policeman or a doctor or a lawyer
Okay,
all willy
I'm
nilly,
happy now.
right?
I'm happy now. Actually, I'm happy now. As long as we can agree that software engineering is is an engineering field. That's it. That's it.
You,
Whatever anyone chooses to call themselves, this is your choice.
you
But
seem to take
but
it very personally.
yeah,
Do you want
yeah,
to
it
talk
is to
about
me.
that?
Yeah, actually, but as long as we agree, and this is on the paper that everyone needs an engineering field, whatever you choose as a person in the industry to call yourself, then this is your choice for whatever reason you have for you to call this, refer to yourself as this. I think because there is a lot that goes into it, and I think it's not that different from other. I mean, yeah, aside from like you can build your own website with WordPress and then call yourself an engineer, but it's not that different really. This is my opinion, and I
Yeah.
think we just got here now. Do you agree?
Yeah. It's more about, like, in a broader sense, for certain things you can't call yourself something because of how the society is set up, you know. And if you do, for some things people may frown at you, for some things you might have more serious consequences. So that was my only point about the whole engineer versus developer business, as a nod to people who have to go through. It's not like we okay again it's not like we don't go through rigorous training, or at least people can. Maybe not everybody chooses to do so, but there are people who take it very seriously and they strive to be better, and in terms of effort and, the sweat put in, they're going to be on par, if not more, with people who are officially certified engineers. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that we don't have that label legally for this particular field. It does not demean in any way anyone's efforts or achievements. It's more of a linguistic peculiarity that I'm being too anal retentive about for whatever reason I have. I don't even know
You know
why.
what? You know what? I think we're gonna have another discussion about this because because I think some people because I feel like some people have spent several years of their life training for this, and then you say that
Yeah,
they
you're
don't
not
get
an
to call
engineer. Suck it up. If you want to be an engineer, go to an engineering school and get a certificate.
Some people have gone several years studying postgraduate degrees and PhDs for this, and then you say, oh no, like they don't get to call themselves this. No, like I don't think so, but
PhDs
again,
don't do QA. What the hell are you talking about?
you know what, Vasili,
Did you
like
see the
I
code
agree
they
with
write?
you.
It's ass.
You know what? I think whatever anyone chooses to call themselves, really, in terms of like the role, this is your choice. Like even like some companies chooses to call it developer or whatever just because so that they can negotiate the price a bit more, capitalism. But at the end of the day, it is what it is.
I'm still
It's
not
a
sure how the
it's
whole
a it's a it's a group of processes that you
yes.
have to follow and regulations that you have to follow to achieve a certain result, to solve a certain problem.
Well,
This is it.
you seem to be very invested in the whole engineer title. You defend it really vigorously.
I came prepared, Vasily. I came
Yes,
prepared.
yes.
But
But I think so. I just had this thought, like, if somebody, I don't know, let's say somebody's having a heart attack on a plane,
Mhm,
and the captain over PA says, "Is there a doctor on the plane?" And somebody comes up
mhm,
front and says, "I'm a doctor. I have a PhD." Like, technically, yes, PhD does mean doctor of, some field, but they're not a
mhm.
medical doctor specifically, so they're completely useless. It's along the same lines. Like, yeah, you can call yourself a
No,
doctor, but in this
no,
particular situation, you're useless. So
no,
sit down
no,
and shut
no,
up.
no. I don't agree. You're not complete. It depends on what you have, what you're doctor in. Doctor in
Okay,
what?
I'm PhD in mathematics. This person is having a heart attack. Good luck. He's a doc.
No,
He's a
doctor in
doctor.
work.
He's a,
Doctor in work.
but he's a doctor. That's my point. He's a
Doctor in work
doctor.
because he can work in the
No,
industry as a software
I
engineer.
said mathematics specifically. He's a PhD in mathematics. He has a doctorate. He's a doctor.
You see,
He's just not that kind of
Vasily,
doctor. So,
Vasily,
you know,
again, again. Honestly, I feel better now, and I feel like I've learned a lot from our conversations in terms of like the regulations and all. But you might be right. Maybe it gets to me because I studied to be a software engineer, and I'm a software engineer. So I take these things very. I mean, there are certain things that I know that maybe not. Maybe nowadays.
does your school's website actually mention the word engineer in there somewhere in relation to that particular program? My program was
Listen,
called Computer Systems Technology,
no,
and I don't think the
no,
word engineering was mentioned
no, no,
anywhere in
no,
there.
no, no. Mine is. You know what? I'm not. I'm not.
Mo, I think I have some bad news for you.
I do know um, about the field. So, and I know that it's just like I feel like nowadays many people probably might not want to really accept the term or like accept the role because then it puts you in a position where whatever you do has to be like A plus or like you have to be like the best and like you cannot afford to make mistakes. Your code has to be like really good and like really like sharp and it's true. But maybe it makes you maybe this is what we need to achieve in the industry really
But
like
we just
to get to this point.
2 weeks ago we talked about it, saying how most people would probably agree that they are puzzled as to how the whole thing still actually works. Like, I know the amount of like crappy code
Mhm.
is just insurmountable everywhere, and everyone's just used to it. And it's true that most code out there is just garbage code, and
Yes.
everyone can strive to write better code, but there's
Mhm.
financial pressures and time constraints and all of these things that make it very difficult to be viable. Because ultimately, again, a lot to be said about viability, because we are still living in a market economy, and you have to have a viable commercial product at the end of the day that users are be willing to pay money for. You can have a perfectly secure system that cost you, I don't know, $1 million, or I don't know, $100 million in 5 years to develop, and then by the time you finished your perfectly secure system, the problem it was solving hasn't gone away, or somebody built a system in 6 months using Ruby on Rails with barely any security ever and captured the entire market. So what are you going to do about it, right? Like,
Oh,
yeah, we want to
this
be
is a
better,
problem.
but it's not a
This is
problem.
a problem.
But
This is a problem, Vasili.
that's saying that
This is a
life
problem.
that's saying that life is a problem, because that's life. You
This is a
can't.
problem.
No,
Okay,
it's
okay,
it's not.
okay.
It's life.
I'll ask. Okay, okay. Vasili, good. So we have some group of um, building engineers. Like I don't know if that's what they call them really, or
Civil
just
engineers.
civil engineers, and they they are putting up a building. So like they can make this building um, within within a day, like within 3 weeks, you have a house,
Yeah.
a standing house. And some people choose to follow the regulation process to build the same house in 6 months. Which one would you put your money in? The one that was built in 3 days, or the one that was built in 6 months? Which one would you think? Would you expect to have better value?
When we were buying this place, we asked when it was built, but we didn't ask how long ago it was built, because again, the idea is with houses is that there is a provincial authority that oversees and certified those things. So if they manage to build it in 3 days and get accepted on all levels of
No, no,
inspection,
no,
does it matter?
no.
What do you mean no? But there is an inspection. Like, maybe it's a bad example, but in this particular industry, you can't, they will not allow you to sell it
Okay.
if it's not certified. So again, that's not a problem. And even
You
with
know
all the
what?
certifications, there's still buildings that fail later on, and there's people having problems with that. So that's not panacea.
You know what? Basically, like you said, we agree that the field itself is an engineering field. Whatever you choose to call yourself, even if you don't call yourself a developer, anything else,
I
this
think
is
I
the
think
choice.
yeah, I should call myself a tire fire engineer, because that's broadly what it boils down to.
Anything else you choose to call yourself in the industry, this is a choice, or like it's put upon you to call yourself this or whatever. But the field itself, it's an engineering field. This is the goal. This is the goal. This.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Mo.
Anyway, yeah, this is honestly, like, I know that at some point, maybe we're gonna have another conversation about actually maybe the differences between being a software developer and actually being a software engineer.
Yeah. I
Because
think this entire conversation was an illustration of like optimism and cynicism broadly colliding.
anyway, we've done well. I feel like we've really opened the can a little bit today. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so far from my perspective, that's probably been one of the most frustrating conversations that we've had. So good job there.
we did well. We did
I
well.
think
So for
I think
sure,
so too.
we'll continue. We'll continue another time. But thank you, Vasily. I really
Thank you, Mo.
appreciate your patience. I appreciate your patience and your your resilience in having this conversation and sharing what you know. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
it would be interesting, what people think about it. All of the 54 subscribers that we
Yeah,
have should go down to comments and voice their opinions. But
I would like to
from
know.
my perspective, don't call yourself an engineer. You're not one. Stop posing.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
See you.
everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And, we'll see you in the comments or the Telegram channel or Discord, wherever you choose to find us and chat with us. Thank you and have a great day. Bye bye.
Have a great day.